Hello again. So the ANC kicked off its local government election campaign in Soweto, where residents remain unhappy about the area's electricity problems. So residents there say they won't register to vote as they have had no electricity for the past 3 years. ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa held meetings with various members of the community and promised to deal with the electricity problems there.
But the community themselves also had an opportunity to also deal with the problem of illegal connections. We dealt with the issue of illegal connections and cable theft, and I could sense that this is something that makes them extremely unhappy, because they know that illegal connections cause an overload on the transformers and they blow up. And it often takes quite a bit of time for ESCOM to restore the electricity. So whilst electricity is an overriding problem, we did give a positive message to our people. We dealt with the underlying issues about prepaid and not wishing to pay. And for those who don't work, we did say that the government has always sought to subsidize those who don't work, who are indigent, and they need to register with the mayor. Unfortunately, our executive mayor was there to confirm that there is assistance for those who can't pay. So on the whole, the matter of electricity was, I think, well dealt with. And of course, we dealt with it in the end by saying that we're going to ensure that ESCOM does restore electricity. Some of the transformers have blown up, the substations have blown up. So those are the technical issues that ESCOM has to deal with. And we are going to be working together with the minister to make sure that ESCOM deals with it. For me, the underlying issue, though, it's a human rights issue. People are entitled to electricity to have a better life, because I just can't imagine how anyone can live in this day and age without electricity.
It was not just the ANC on the campaign trail today. Political parties, others as well, crisscrossing the country this weekend on door-to-door campaigning. Of course, it's voter registration weekend. The ANC president you saw there in different parts of Johannesburg, there in Soweto, the DA in Cape Town, Good also in Cape Town, Cope in Rustenburg, and the EFF Commander-in-Chief, Julius Malema in Kwa-Zulu Natal, and many other parties in other areas as well. Let's speak now to brand expert Moeng on what would constitute effective campaigning. A very good evening to you, Mr. Moeng. Thanks indeed for your time. So all the parties want those votes come November the 1st, but what really constitutes effective campaigning? Everyone's jostling last minute here to try and sway the voter.
Well, good evening, and to your listeners out there, Griselda. Thank you for the invitation. Look, all political parties have to be aware of what the issues are that impact on the lives of the communities in which they campaign. And there will be different issues in different communities. They will tell lies, they will make promises. Those who have been there before will try to indicate that they have tried very hard and maybe try and show a few things to show that they've made some progress. But it's really up to the residents, up to the voters in the end to make a decision, to decide whether or not they've had it before, they've seen it all before, and they have to be clear about what they want. I don't think that staying away from voting is the solution. People must learn how to give a good kick in the butt to all these political parties who keep coming back over and over again to make promises without delivering on them. It's really up to the voters. The voters, the only power they have really in a democracy such as ours is to vote away from the incumbent if they're not happy with the incumbent, and not to stay away at home without voting.
With all this crisscrossing, I mean, messaging would be important, isn't it, to speak to the issues that communities are grappling with on a daily basis?
Yeah, absolutely. The messaging is very important. But then, again, there are two sides to any communication. There's the one the communicator, which in this case the political parties, which have campaign messages to sell, and those campaign messages, as we know, we've had them before. Some of them will be filled with lies, with untruths, with things that will never be possible to realize. It's still up to the recipients of those messages to determine whether or not they've heard it before and they want change. But messaging is of course very important. It's important that campaigners understand what the issues are in each community that they campaign in. And then these political parties, we must not be fooled, are very smart at that. They know how to say the right things in front of the right public. But then whether they're going to act on it is a different matter.
Yeah. And I guess that messaging, I guess voters, should also be reading party manifestos, for example, and basically getting to understand the gist of what is being promised here.
Yeah, definitely. There's a responsibility, huge responsibility, that comes on the side of the voters. They have to read. They have to understand what is in the manifesto of this party. What does it imply for me, for my community, for South Africa, if I vote for these people to come into power? A lot of people don't. A lot of people make decisions on the basis of newspaper headlines or a rumor, fake news. We also live in an era of fake news, misinformation, disinformation. Confuses a lot of people who don't have the time or the ability to read manifestos, to really ask the right questions to these people and not fall into the habit of dancing and singing Umzabalazo song that mean nothing in 2021.
But what should these voters be asking these political parties? I mean, some have made promises, some of the promises have been met, have been kept, I beg your pardon. Some of them have not been kept. I mean, we saw with some of the campaigning taking place today, irate residents who are saying they've not had electricity for the longest time. What should the voters be asking political parties in the run-up to this election?
Well, the voters should be saying, let's find somebody else. We have given you 5 years to sort this problem out. We have not sorted it out. You can't come back here and say, I've only managed to achieve a 20% of 100%. So the voters need to say, look, thank you very much. We really love you, but we're going to give somebody else a chance. Voters mustn't vote for people to become presidents or big. They must just vote for them so that they deliver, and they must keep an eye on them. Voters must get to know who their councillors are in terms of local government elections. Who is your councillor? Many people don't know who their councillors are. Do you call them up? Do you call upon them when there's a problem in your area? Are they responsive to your problems? Or do they suddenly show their faces just ahead of elections with lies? It's up to the voters in the end to say, you know what, it's enough, we're going to try somebody else. In 5 years' time, if that somebody else has not delivered, the voters must move on to somebody else.
Brand expert Moeng, thank you very much for joining us this evening, talking a bit about the campaign trail, what would constitute effective campaigning. You've seen quite a number of political parties out on the campaign trail this weekend. Of course, it is voter registration weekend, and we'd like to find out from you a little bit later on, did you register to vote in the upcoming election?